Today, I come to you from a strange space. When I woke up this morning, it was to tears and a certain sense of weariness. Oh dear, there went the hawk. He's so big compared to these little songbirds that he dines on. And so, I really didn't know what the tears were about. The me that I once was would have repressed them in the name of being strong, that sort of thing. I'm glad I knew better. So I just sat with them. Not weeping and sobbing and all that, just quiet tears. Watching and asking them what they were about. In a way, it's like journaling. Our feelings come up, and they have a message for us, an understanding to give us. But the only way to get it is to journal it, to go through it, to feel the feelings. To let them know they have a right to be, and that they are welcome here. The old samsara and nirvana thing. It's not always bliss. And yet it is. It's whatever. Anyway. I say and mean that I want to be really transparent here. Just to be. And not to be hiding things or trying to make things seem one way or another. Well, that's not always easy when we're in a difficult spot. We don't necessarily want to share that, but there it is. I'm just so confident that you are all that I am. And it's not a 3D or mental sort of perfection that we are. The perfection that is deeper than that. And so sometimes there are tears. And then I went to the Mayan calendar and I thought, well, let's see, what's the energy of today? And it blew me away. It's 13 Jaguar. So 13 is the culmination, they call it ascension, that's just a word. And Jaguar is that energy of the birth of this body. And 13 Jaguar just doesn't come around that often. So it's a very special day. So it makes me listen even more closely to the tears. and to recognize them as the gift that they are. Mind isn't always able to sort things out. It doesn't need to. Understanding can come on far deeper levels. So I can't tell you why the tears. I don't know. As I say, there's a certain sense of weariness. It's so much easier to be out of the body at night, and then to have to pick it up in the morning, is just comes with the challenges that are built into that. So, I have a journal for you. I don't know. It's a 12D. And it's from last year, 12/28. The Mayan day was 11 deer. Somehow this one got put away before it was recorded. And so, let us see what is here to be shared. It's funny that it is I don't know. Let's just get into it. Hello, my dear friends. For a while now, I've been calling you my soul family, but I didn't get that from you. So I'd like you to say whatever you will about it. As you're aware, I don't at all mind being corrected if it isn't so. Hello, Theresa-Ann. Yes, we are that. We've been together for basically billions of your Earth years, so I'd say we were pretty darn close. I had to laugh. Pretty darn close. Love your colloquialisms. Let me ask you some questions then, but I'd love it if we could close this one by just letting you speak while I write. That's my hope. Works for us. Okay then. Have you... Oh dear. I realize the ridiculousness of this question, but I'll go ahead and ask. Have you ever been Amgadied here on this planet, or in 3D anywhere, for that matter? Yes, it is a bit amusing. In billions of years, one finds oneself doing many diverse things. We have certainly had our cycles, long ones even, in 3D. It's been a long while now for most of us, however. 3D, while quite wonderful for soul development, is also highly challenging, which of course you well know. The thing is, so much progress or soul development is only possible in 3D. When you know basically everything, that actually makes it hard to progress. Plus, not all that many 3D bodies or forms are as rich as those you wear there on planet Earth. Most other 3D bodies don't provide the rocket ride of your current ones. Your emotions are strong in them. This is a real advancement as far as enhancing the ability for soul progress. It's also quite painful at times. I'm sure you can understand why many don't race to put one on. And I said, well, I don't know. Let's look at that. Don't you live in Heart up there where you are? It would be mind that wouldn't want to have such experiences, right? Yes, daughter, that's the case, and a good point. Well, why then? Why is it then that you don't want to come down into this? If it's not being in mind that's holding you back, what is? We're not sure we can explain this to your satisfaction. We may have to show you, perhaps when you sleep, and then you can write of it from that experience. Now, we could, of course, provide an explanation, but that would tend toward mind, a way we don't choose to go with you. Well, then, let's talk about mind, I said. I have conceptualized a sort of bifurcated mind, a lower or 3D mind, and what I call higher mind. In some New Age groups, higher mind is viewed as Christ mind or Christ consciousness. Having recently learned how very far off base my conception was surrounding higher self, not being the least distant from 3D, which I'm still exploring. Is it a similar case with mind? No, actually it is not. Only let's get our terms laid out properly, for there is brain and then there is mind. They are not the same thing. Brain is physical and participates definitely in thought and analysis. Mind is not physical. You are familiar with the concept of the 4 lower bodies being there in 3D. Physical, emotional, mental, and etheric. While your 5 senses are not currently attuned to perceive those above the physical, emotional, mental, etheric, they are still composed of 3D substance and can be witnessed by those whose inner senses are active, so they are also considered physical, though far less dense than the physical form. Let us distinguish brain from mind. There's a bird here, a tufted titmouse, who's come in and, or are you a snowbird? Sitting on the perch, most un-titmouse-like. Okay, sorry. Okay, let us distinguish brain from mind. First, thought is not contained in the brain, which acts more as a receiving and sending station than is currently understood by scientists. The brain tunes into thoughts, bringing them in, or not, based on your current resonance with them. Thus, when you are down, as you say, in the blues or the pits, the frequency of your thoughts tends to be negative. What that does is pull in all other thoughts at that level or frequency. At any point in time, the overall frequency of your thoughts makes you one with or linked or united with all others sharing those same sorts of thoughts. In this case, like attracts like. Do you see? Well, yes, so far it's quite clear. I'm actually surprised at how closely some New Age groups are to this understanding you've so far presented. Not for long, they say. You do see how, however, whatever sort of thinking you're doing is magnified, is intensified by all others who are in resonance with you. This will, in effect, tend to put you into a downward spiral if you're thinking negatively. It will likewise lift you into a positive spiral if your thoughts are in resonance with that. Again, like attracts like. And I say, okay, so far so good. How do the brain and 3D mind or mental interact beyond this receiving station activity? Just as you bring in like thoughts or thoughts at like frequencies, you also send out the same. In this way, you contribute to an overall activity that either raises or lowers the planetary vibration or frequency. At any point in time, the mass mind is a function of all thoughts in the now. This mass mind also has an effect on most of you, on the majority. You asked how brain and mind, or mental body, interact. You'd be surprised. First of all, thoughts have form. You know that beliefs create your reality. Well, beliefs are composed of reinforced thoughts, habit patterns of thought. Each thought, having its own form, eventually concatenates with like thoughts present locally and in the mass consciousness. Over time, these forms grow, though often enough they begin to take on a life of their own, a consciousness. They become entities or beings, in other words. These occupy your aura, hanging out, as it were, as long as you retain them, as long as you retain resonance with them. You can see then how beliefs have a certain shape and a consciousness all their own. When you think, then, the thoughts you're likely to think are those closest to you, those you carry around all the time. No, carry around at all times. These are the first ones with which the brain is likely to interact. In a way, you become or you host a community of thought. Though these become beings of sort and can be called entities and have a will of their own, they have no soul, no real or true being. And I asked, are they self-conscious, self-aware? No, generally not. They can become so, but not generally. Okay, I said, but how does higher mind come into this picture, please? And am I correct in my understanding around higher mind? Yes and no. You are partly, substantively correct, but not wholly. Higher mind and higher self can be said to be one, the same. Give me a moment with that, please. I want to take it in. Got some internal rearranging going on. That being so, it is little wonder that higher mind has been called the Christ consciousness or Christ mind. Clearly, it is divine. Okay, I think I'm ready. Please go on. Very well. Just as there is a mass consciousness or a mass mind on earth, so is there something similar in the higher dimensions, an overall oneness of mind. As above, so below, and vice versa. One, the poor reflection of the other. Additionally, the oneness of higher mind is both accessed and shared by all in those dimensions, unlike the mass consciousness of Earth, which is largely unconscious to most people. They do share the mass mind, but are not consciously aware of it. Most are not yet sufficiently self-aware to be able to identify their own thoughts from those of another. This is largely why they don't realize they are all telepathic. They think all thoughts they perceive are their own. And I said, yes, I'm familiar with that. It wasn't until a set of thoughts floating through my mind were so distinctly different in thought pattern from my own that I was alerted to this. Back in my late teens, there was, in addition, a lot of emotional power behind the thoughts, as they were those of a young man standing close by as I was hand-washing dishes, so that helped them come through with some clarity. I didn't quite catch on, though, until he uttered the very words that had just gone through my awareness a moment ago. Then the light couldn't help but go on as I had my first conscious experience with telepathy. Once that happens, it becomes much easier to spot later on. The seeing, the knowing about it, provides the needed boost to spotting it going forward. Yes, this is how that works, or can work. It takes a certain level of self-awareness to catch it. When it comes to interacting with higher mind, many never do in the current lifetime. It doesn't come down to you, so to speak. You rise up to it. When both your frequency and general thought patterns vibrate high enough, you naturally tune in to higher mind, which has been there thinking its own thoughts all along. You just don't tune into them until you're ready. And as you can see, this has everything to do with free will and choice. What sort of thought patterns or entities do you choose to commonly entertain? Are you riding the upward or the downward spiral in general? You are in charge here. None of us can interfere and teach you these things before you're ready. And besides, that wouldn't do any good. As you often say, awakening is a do-it-yourself proposition. No one else can do this for you. Were we to teach you, it wouldn't bear fruit. It wouldn't stick with you. While some will interpret this as needing to earn this, needing to be worthy, that's not the case either. You are quite naturally divine, yet you have chosen to step down from the heights of your divinity into these flesh forms. You are influenced here by so many things that it's amazing. Once you rise up above the flesh frequency, taking a look from up above, so to speak, you'll see what we mean. It boggles the mind, all you deal with on a moment-by-moment basis. The influences abound. Thus, you must be quite ready before gaining an understanding. Many of the beings that manipulate man and woman are in the fourth density. These would see your awakening coming and do what they could to head it off at the pass, as you say. Thus, you must be solidly at that level of consciousness and able to sustain it before the knowledge shows up. Do you see? Yes, friends, it paints a more than interesting picture, surely. In some ways, I guess I'm glad not to have had fully open sight all this time. I'm not sure what good seeing these beings, these entities, would do before I had gained some mastery over them. However, I can see how, in a more advanced, spiritually advanced 3D society, there could be schools we attended that laid all of these things out, helping us attain our mastery much sooner than is the norm here. Definitely. And there are. Okay, I could ask more questions, but I want to give the microphone to you so that you may share whatever you like. and not be interrupted or guided by more questions. Please take us where you will. Very well then, we like that as well. With your body's birthday upcoming, we'd like to share something of what that looks like from our vantage here in 5D. Life in 3D is cyclical, as you know, plus you have a much different experience of time there, where it seems you must wait for things. There are both higher and lower bodies. In 3D, we've spoken of the four. At higher frequencies, there are others, one of which is often called the causal body. This one contains all the blessings and benefits of your incarnations. It has been referred to as your treasures stored up in heaven, though it's poorly understood. At any rate, on the precise day and hour and minute of the body's birth anniversary, a sphere of light, of divine light, passes down from the causal body into the heart area where it alights and remains. In this are contained all of the graces and blessings designed to be called forth in that cycle, that year. We watch and can see this descent on the birthday. It is so beautiful, magnifying the light of the aura throughout the day. What you have heard is the case, that the blessings given out by the birthday person are all the more powerful on their natal day, and this is why. By becoming aware of this, the way humanity is rising in frequency, many more can now become conscious of this activity of light. A certain reverence is appropriate when considering it. Heart, rather than mind, is the best vehicle for this, of course. Thus, each birthday can start the new cycle on a high note. When you set your intent to do so, you can initiate a rising spiral of light for the year. We see that your body grows weary. We too could say more on this, but it would be wiser to pick it up at another time in another now, out of respect for the dear body, which is doing its very best under the intensity of changes going on at this time. Rest and relaxation are far more conducive to rising consciousness than are pushing and driving via the will. Read that, the mind, past the body's capacity for any comfort. Thank you so much, my friends. You've given a lot in this missive, and I'm glad. Pieces to the puzzle are almost always welcome. Sometimes one is so high on light that the mind isn't active enough to take them in. When the body is hurting, though, that's seldom the case. Everything has its up and downside, though. In this case, much use can be made of simple acceptance of the body's state. When it's accepted, not resisted, much good can still come of it, albeit of a different sort. Mind would love to make the choice for the high spiritual experience, rather than the one more cramped by the body's discomfort. Mind would be short-sighted in that case, clearly. I'm so in love with it all these days. More and more the love of Source is triggered and flows through while just being present to the moment. It's quite a lovely way to be, even in times of discomfort. I am so amazed by how everything manages to have its own beautiful side, and no doubt the beautiful things have their dark or negative side as well. I'm just not used to looking for that. The discomfort motivates, though, to see the bright side of it, so that helps. I love you, my dear friends and family. Your acknowledged presence, your perceived presence in my life lifts me up entirely. Life here, as you know, isn't easy. Please, I ask you again to go out and help each soul who is willing to come into deeper interaction with their guides and soul family, their angels. Knit us up together into the one truly huge divine family we truly are. Help us more and more awaken into the quite natural unity of the divine. Help one and all to awaken to the divine right where they are. And thank you so much for what you've offered. This has been one of the longest yet. Yes, we are aware of that, Theresa-Ann, and quite pleased. Your pain is intense now, so do take some medication for your ease. We love you. You know that. Now, be about knowing how you are we, and you are all. Let there be the infinite expansion of love that is quite natural to love. Expand out in consciousness to take in what has been there, this union, all along. It is the right of each one of you. Take advantage. Namaste.